Ladies and gentlemen, there's one thing you can do just once. That will make him cry for you all night without even understanding why. Not because you begged, not because you played games, but because you showed him something he's never felt before. What it's like to lose a woman who brings peace instead of chaos. When you master this, you won't need to chase him, question him, or prove your worth because he'll feel your absence in his bones. And that's when he'll realize you were the calm he didn't know he needed until it was gone. And ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something powerful, something that doesn't require games, manipulation, or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about doing one thing that shifts the balance of connection so deeply that it leaves a lasting mark on his heart. Something that makes him feel your absence not because you withdrew, but because you showed up in a way he wasn't prepared for. When I say, do this once and he will cry for you all night without even knowing why, I'm not talking about drama or revenge. I'm talking about emotional gravity, the kind that makes a person realize what they've lost, even when they can't quite put it into words. And you see, we live in a world where attention is cheap and affection is fleeting. Everyone's trying to be seen, to be validated, to be wanted. But the truth is, real connection is not about being wanted. It's about being missed. When someone misses you, it's because you've reached them in a way that most people don't. You've touched something inside them that goes beyond physical attraction, beyond admiration. You've touched their peace. That's the secret most people overlook. The way to make someone crave you, even cry for you, is to be the person who brought calm to their chaos. And most people chase intensity. They want to be exciting, unpredictable, irresistible, but that excitement fades fast. What doesn't fade is the memory of how someone made you feel when you were with them. When you give a man peace, when you make him feel understood instead of judged, seen instead of evaluated, free instead of trapped, you become the person his heart looks for when everything else feels heavy. That's the energy that keeps him up at night wondering, why do I miss her so much? And so how do you do this? It starts with emotional control. When he pulls away, you don't chase. When he goes silent, you don't beg for reassurance. When he tests your worth with distance or confusion, you remain steady. That steadiness, your calm, is rare. Because everyone else reacts. Everyone else falls apart when attention disappears. But when you stay grounded, when you don't try to prove your value, he starts to feel something strange, respect. And respect, more than attraction, is what creates emotional dependency, and you don't earn this respect by playing hard to get, you earn it by being hard to shake. You know who you are, you know what you deserve, you don't trade your dignity for temporary validation. You show him that his inconsistency won't move you off your center. And when you do that once, when you stay calm in a moment where he expected you to crumble, you plant a seed in his mind. That seed grows into reflection, then regret, then longing, and because here's what happens next. When you're not available to chaos, you become associated with peace. And when life hits him, when his phone stops buzzing, when attention fades, when excitement turns to emptiness, his mind goes back to the one person who felt different. He remembers your tone, your energy, your stillness. He remembers how, in a world full of noise, you made him feel safe. That memory doesn't go away. It's the kind of memory that wakes him up at 2 a.m., scrolling through old messages, wondering if he could have done things differently. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to make him feel something is the moment he starts feeling everything. You stop trying to be the one he notices, and suddenly he can't stop noticing the absence of your energy. You stop explaining yourself, and suddenly he's left with all the unanswered questions. You stop fighting for the connection, and suddenly he's the one fighting with himself about why he let it slip away. And do this once, just once, and he'll feel something he can't explain. He'll replay that last moment you didn't argue, didn't cry, didn't plead. You just smiled, wished him well, and walked away with peace. And that peace will haunt him, because most people leave chaos behind. You left grace, and grace leaves a different kind of pain, and the most powerful emotion you can create in someone isn't excitement or desire, it's loss. Not the kind of loss that comes from punishment or distance, but from realization. Realization that they had something beautiful, something rare, and they didn't appreciate it. Realization that you were never trying to be above them, you were just too solid to be beneath them. Realization that you didn't need them to feel valuable, but they needed you to remember their own worth. And people don't cry for those who begged to stay. They cry for those who knew their value and still chose them with softness. They cry for the calm presence they can't find again. They cry for the emotional safety they took for granted. They cry for the laughter that felt effortless, for the connection that wasn't transactional, for the way you made them feel like they were enough without ever saying the words. And here's the truth, he won't even know why he's crying. He'll tell himself he's fine. He'll distract himself, talk to other people, scroll, drink, work, flirt. But in the quiet moments, when everything goes still, your energy will echo, the way your voice dropped when you were sincere. The way you listened without interrupting. The way you didn't try to fill every silence because you were comfortable with stillness. That stillness becomes the mirror he can't look away from. It reminds him of everything he ran from and everything he still wants. And you didn't change him with pressure. You changed him with presence. And that's the part he won't be able to replace. He can meet someone funnier, someone prettier, someone more available, but not someone who makes him feel seen without judgment. Because that kind of connection isn't found, it's felt, it's earned through emotional maturity, and once a person experiences it, every other connection feels shallow by comparison. And so when I say do this once, I mean show him your power without using force. Show him what real self-respect looks like. Be kind without being available. Be graceful without being naive. Be loving without losing yourself. Do it once and it will rewrite the entire dynamic. You'll stop being the one who needs closure, and he'll become the one searching for it. And because what he won't realize until it's too late is that your absence isn't punishment, it's reflection. Every woman he meets after you will remind him of what you gave effortlessly: peace, acceptance, emotional safety. And the cruel twist is, he'll start trying to find you in everyone else. He'll chase it, but he won't find it. Because what you gave came from a place of self-worth, and you can't fake that. And he will cry not because you hurt him, but because you showed him a version of love that he wasn't ready for, and now he can't forget it. You showed him that real power is silent, that love doesn't beg, that connection doesn't demand attention to exist. You reminded him that peace is addictive, and once a man feels it, he will crave it in every future encounter. That craving will be his quiet punishment, his emotional echo, his reminder that not every woman can give what you did. And do it once, just once, and he will stay up all night not knowing why he can't move on. He'll call it nostalgia, regret, confusion. But deep down, it's none of that. It's grief, the kind that comes when someone realizes they've lost something rare, something that no amount of attention, validation, or temporary affection can replace. And all you did was show him who you truly are, and then, when it was time, you let him see what life feels like without you. And when he feels that loss, when the reality sinks in, that he can't reach you the way he used to, something inside him begins to shift. He starts remembering moments he didn't value, conversations he half listened to, the times you tried to connect and he dismissed it. Those memories replay in his mind like quiet whispers that grow louder with each passing day. And it's not the dramatic fights or the passionate highs he remembers. It's the small things. The little ways you made him feel grounded, the effortless laughter, the way you leaned in when he spoke, like his words mattered. Those moments become ghosts that visit him when no one else is around, reminding him of everything he failed to protect. And he'll try to convince himself that he's fine. He'll throw himself into distractions, new faces, empty validation. But no matter how hard he tries, he can't recreate the emotional oxygen you brought into his life. You became the calm in his storm, and once he's tasted that kind of connection, everything else feels like noise. That's what true emotional impact does. It ruins the appetite for superficiality. It doesn't shout, it lingers. It doesn't chase, it haunts. And that haunting is what makes him ache in ways he doesn't understand. And he might reach out, not with clarity, but confusion. Maybe he'll send a short message, something vague, something meaningless, but what he's really doing is searching for the feeling. He wants to know if the doorway to your peace is still open. And that's the moment that defines everything, not for him, but for you. Because the power wasn't in how you walked away. The power is in how you stay gone when you know your value. And you see, most people break their own spell. They do the right thing by stepping back, but then they return the second they're missed. They mistake being remembered for being chosen. But there's a difference between someone missing your presence and someone being ready for your presence. The man who truly understands what you brought to his life won't just miss you, he'll evolve for you. But until that happens, your silence is sacred. It's not punishment, it's protection of your peace, your dignity, your emotional clarity. And because when you've learned to live without needing validation, that's when your power becomes unshakable. You no longer respond to breadcrumbs because you've built your own feast. You no longer chase reassurance because you trust your worth. You no longer cling to potential because you're grounded in reality. And that level of emotional independence is what makes someone realize, I lost something I may never find again. And he won't cry because you left. He'll cry because he finally understands that you didn't leave to hurt him. You left to honor yourself. And that realization will cut deeper than any angry goodbye ever could, because it shows him something profound, that love without boundaries isn't love, it's dependency. And the moment you stopped being dependent on his validation, you became unforgettable, and he'll remember how you never competed for attention, how you never begged to be chosen, how you simply existed in your own light, and that light made him feel seen. That's the part he'll ache for, the authenticity, because in a world where everyone's pretending, you were real. And that realness doesn't fade, it echoes, and the more he tries to move on, the more he realizes that what he lost wasn't a person. It was an experience. The experience of being around someone who made him feel emotionally safe without losing herself in the process. Someone who could love deeply and still have the strength to walk away. Someone who didn't confuse attachment with connection. That realization will hit him slowly, like the morning light seeping through a closed curtain. It doesn't crash, it dawns. And as it dawns, he'll start replaying the things you said, the advice you gave, the way you made him think about himself differently. He'll hear your voice in moments of doubt, in quiet reflections, in decisions that remind him of your perspective. That's when he'll realize you didn't just touch his heart, you touched his growth, you left an imprint on his evolution. That's not something he can run from, no matter how far he goes, and he may not admit it out loud. He may even act indifferent. But deep down, he'll know that the connection he had with you was built on something genuine, something he didn't protect, something he took for granted. And that truth will follow him like a shadow, not to torment him, but to teach him, because sometimes the lesson isn't found in having someone, it's found in losing them. And here's where your true transformation happens, because while he's sitting with the weight of regret, you're rising in peace. You're no longer defined by his confusion or his inconsistency. You're defined by the way you refused to let heartbreak make you bitter. You didn't turn cold, you turned calm. You didn't build walls, you built standards. You didn't become harder, you became wiser. And that wisdom radiates. It changes the energy you carry into every future connection, and you start attracting people who don't confuse your kindness with weakness. People who see your calm as power, not passivity. People who match your energy instead of draining it. Because when you respect yourself enough to walk away once, you attract those who never make you question whether you should. That's the quiet reward of emotional maturity. It redefines your entire experience of love. And meanwhile, he'll be haunted by the difference between attention and affection. He'll remember how easy it was to get attention from others, but how hard it was to earn genuine connection from you. And that difference will become the ache that keeps him awake, not because you wanted revenge, but because your absence revealed the truth, that what he thought was replaceable was actually rare. And he'll scroll through your old photos, your posts, your messages, trying to decode what went wrong. But he'll never find the moment you stopped loving him, because it wasn't a moment, it was a realization. The realization that love shouldn't require you to shrink yourself to be seen. That peace is too expensive to trade for chaos. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to let someone experience life without the comfort of your presence. And he will cry for you not because of guilt, but because of awakening. Because he'll finally understand what real love looks like, and he'll realize he wasn't ready for it when he had it. That understanding will live inside him like a quiet echo, surfacing when he sees someone who reminds him of you, when he hears a song that feels like you, when he sits in silence and remembers the steadiness of your energy. That's what emotional gravity does. It pulls at the soul long after the body has moved on. And you, in your strength, will smile, not out of pride but out of peace, because you'll know that you didn't lose anything. You simply made space for something deeper, truer, and more aligned with who you've become. You'll look back not with bitterness, but with gratitude. Gratitude that you learned how powerful it is to choose yourself. Gratitude that you realized your love is not something to be given recklessly. It's a gift, and not everyone is ready to receive it. And every woman has a moment where she decides that her energy is too sacred to be drained by confusion, that her heart is too valuable to be gambled with, that her love is too powerful to be misunderstood. When you reach that moment and act on it, you become unforgettable, because the world remembers those who love deeply, but it reveres those who love deeply and still know when to walk away. And that's what makes him cry without knowing why. It's not about missing your body. It's about missing your energy. It's about realizing that you brought something into his life he didn't even know he needed. Peace, patience, understanding, authenticity. And once a man has felt that kind of presence, he will search for it in every woman he meets. He will chase it, crave it, pray for it. But he will never find it the same way again, because it was never just what you gave him. It was who you were when you gave it. And so when he stays awake at night, heart aching, mind restless, unable to explain the sadness that sits beneath his ribs, know this: it's not because you disappeared. It's because, for the first time, he's realizing the difference between a woman who wanted to be chosen and a woman who already knew she was. You did this once, you stood in your worth, you chose peace over chaos, and that one choice changed everything because it taught him and reminded you what real love actually feels like. And when that realization hits him, when the noise of the world fades and he's left alone with the silence he used to find comfort in with you, it starts to hurt in places he didn't even know existed, because now he's not just missing a person, he's missing the peace that came with you, the conversations that didn't feel like games. The way you looked at him, not with judgment, not with need, but with presence. That kind of energy can't be replicated. You can meet 1,000 people and still feel like something's missing, because it wasn't about what you did. It was about who you were when you did it. And he'll sit there replaying moments in his head, trying to figure out where it all went wrong, and it won't make sense. Because you didn't explode, you didn't beg, you didn't accuse. You simply withdrew your energy like the tide receding from the shore, quietly, gracefully, without warning. And that silence, that lack of drama, is what makes it so powerful. Because people expect chaos when things end. They expect arguments, tears, anger, but what truly breaks them is peace, the kind of peace that says, I've accepted what this is, and I choose myself now. And he'll wonder how you can be so calm, how you can move forward without him, but what he doesn't realize is that you didn't move forward out of indifference, you moved forward out of understanding. You understood that love isn't about holding on, it's about recognizing when something no longer aligns with your growth. You understood that you can care deeply for someone and still choose to walk away, not because you stopped loving them, but because you started loving yourself a little more. And in that moment of understanding, you became everything he didn't expect. A mirror reflecting all the ways he failed to show up, all the love he was too afraid to accept, all the peace he didn't know how to nurture. That's why he can't stop thinking about you, because you weren't just a person in his life. You were a reflection of what he could have been if he had been brave enough to meet you at your level. And every time he tries to distract himself, it fails. He might meet someone new, and for a while, it'll feel exciting. But excitement without depth burns out fast, and soon he'll realize that what he misses about you wasn't the thrill, it was the ease. The way he could just exist around you without having to perform. The way your presence didn't demand, it invited. That kind of connection is rare, and once someone loses it, they start to understand that love isn't about butterflies, it's about peace. And he'll start to look at his reflection differently. Maybe for the first time, he'll ask himself, why wasn't I ready for her? That question will follow him everywhere. It'll come up when he sees a couple walking hand in hand. When he hears a song that sounds like your laughter. When someone new asks him about his past and he hesitates before saying your name. Because deep down he knows you weren't just another chapter, you were the turning point, and here's the truth, your absence will become his teacher. It'll teach him about accountability, emotional maturity, communication. It'll teach him what it means to truly appreciate someone. Because losing someone who loved him from a place of strength will make him realize that not all love is the same. There's love that feels like adrenaline, and then there's love that feels like home. You were the latter. And he didn't know how to live in peace because he was addicted to chaos, but while he's learning those lessons, you're evolving. You're stepping into a version of yourself that's even more grounded, more radiant, more self-assured. You're no longer waiting for someone to choose you. You're choosing yourself daily. You've turned your pain into wisdom, your heartbreak into fuel, your silence into strength. And the beauty of that transformation is that it doesn't need to be seen to be powerful, Because real growth happens quietly. It doesn't announce itself, it simply shows up differently, and you'll notice that your boundaries have changed. What you once tolerated, you no longer entertain. What once drained you now repels you. You start to attract peace instead of excitement, depth instead of distraction, intention instead of inconsistency. That's the power of evolution. It recalibrates your entire standard for love, and maybe one day he'll see you again. Maybe it'll be in person, maybe through a post, maybe through mutual friends. He'll notice how different you seem, not because you've changed who you are, but because you've finally remembered it. He'll feel the shift in your energy, the self-assurance in your voice, the light in your eyes that no longer seeks approval. And that will be the moment he truly breaks, because he'll realize that the version of you he took for granted is gone forever. And he'll want to reach out, to explain, to make sense of it, but he won't find the words because there's nothing to fix. What he's feeling isn't regret, it's awakening. He's awakening to the reality that you were never his possession, you were his opportunity. An opportunity to grow, to evolve, to learn what real love feels like, and he missed it. That realization will sit with him, quietly eroding every illusion he built about himself. Because now he knows that losing someone like you isn't bad luck. It's a consequence, and while he's learning that lesson, your life will start to expand in ways you couldn't have imagined. Because when you stop pouring into people who can't hold your depth, the universe starts sending you those who can. The kind of connections that don't make you question your worth. The kind of people who see your value without you having to prove it. The kind of love that doesn't require you to abandon yourself to feel chosen. And that's when you'll understand the full power of that one decision, to walk away once with grace. Because that single act of self-respect doesn't just change your relationship, it changes your life. It rewires how you view love, how you respond to pain, how you trust yourself. You start realizing that your peace is your superpower. That the ability to stay calm in the face of chaos isn't weakness, it's mastery, and he'll watch you glow from afar, and he won't understand how you did it. He'll think it happened overnight, but you'll know the truth. You'll know it took nights of questioning your worth, days of silence that felt unbearable, moments where you almost reached out, but didn't. Because every time you resisted the urge to go back, you were building emotional muscle. Every time you chose peace over closure, you were reclaiming your power. Every time you let the silence speak for you, you were teaching him what loss truly feels like, and he will feel it deeply. He'll feel it in every woman who reminds him of you but doesn't feel like you. He'll feel it when he's surrounded by people yet still feels alone. He'll feel it when he realizes that the comfort he once dismissed was actually rare, that your love wasn't ordinary, it was healing. And healing love doesn't come around often. It comes once, maybe twice in a lifetime, and he'll know he let his go. And he'll cry not just from sadness, but from recognition that he had something pure and didn't know how to receive it. Recognition that your strength wasn't indifference, it was clarity. Recognition that your goodbye wasn't rejection, it was a reflection of everything he wasn't ready to face. And you'll smile, not out of pride, but because you understand something deeper now, that the kind of love you offer can never be lost. Because it lives within you. It's the energy that heals, the presence that calms, the light that awakens. And while he's out there trying to fill the void, you'll be out there creating peace, building purpose, and walking in a love that doesn't need to be chased because it flows naturally from who you've become. And that's the moment the story truly changes, not because he finally understands, but because you no longer need him to. His tears, his regret, his awakening, they're not your victory. Your victory is the quiet confidence that you earned by doing the hardest thing anyone can do, letting go with love. You did this once, with strength, grace, and calm, and it became the moment that defined both of your lives in completely different ways. He learned what he lost, and you discovered who you are. And as time goes on, that realization only deepens for him. The ache doesn't fade, it matures, it becomes quieter, heavier, more reflective. At first it was confusion, then it turned into regret, but now it has become understanding. Understanding that what he felt with you wasn't ordinary, and what he lost wasn't replaceable. Because there's something profoundly painful about realizing that the kind of love that brought you peace doesn't come twice. That the softness he once took for granted was strength disguised as warmth, and the longer he lives without it, the more he realizes that peace isn't boring, it's sacred. And he'll see glimpses of you everywhere, maybe in a stranger's laugh, in a scent that floats past him on a crowded street, or in a song that hits a little too close to home. And every time he does, he'll feel that same tightening in his chest, the one that whispers, "You had something beautiful, and you let it slip through your hands." Because even though time moves forward, energy lingers, and your energy, your calm, your grace, your quiet certainty, has woven itself into his memories in a way he can't untangle. And he'll start realizing that what made you unforgettable wasn't how much you gave, but how much you didn't take. You didn't drain him with demands or try to force him into something he wasn't ready for. You simply allowed him to be himself, and in doing so, you showed him what real acceptance feels like. That kind of love doesn't control, it frees, and when someone experiences freedom within love, it leaves an imprint that time can't erase. Because what you gave him wasn't a high, it was healing, and once someone has been healed, even partially, by your presence, they will forever crave that kind of peace again. And yet, here's the irony, he didn't know how to receive that healing when it was right in front of him. Because to receive something pure, you have to feel worthy of it, and deep down he didn't, so he pushed it away, thinking he had time to come back when he was ready. But life doesn't always give you that luxury, because while he was figuring himself out, you were evolving. You were outgrowing the version of yourself that tolerated confusion disguised as connection. You were learning that love isn't measured by how much pain you can endure, but by how much peace you're willing to protect. And he'll come to see that the way you walked away wasn't cold, it was compassionate, because in that act, you gave him the one thing he couldn't give himself, a reason to grow. You forced him to sit with his own reflection, to face the parts of himself he avoided. And that's why your absence feels like both a wound and a lesson. It hurts him, but it also humbles him. It breaks his pride while rebuilding his perspective. And while he's sitting in that stillness, you're out there living in color again. You've rebuilt your joy from the ground up, piece by piece. You've learned how to smile without pretending, how to laugh without worrying who's watching, how to love yourself in ways that make validation irrelevant. You've learned that your heart was never too much. Shit was just given to someone who wasn't ready to hold it. And now that you've reclaimed it, you guard it not with walls, but with wisdom, and you start noticing that your standards no longer come from fear, they come from peace. You don't push people away because you're afraid of being hurt. You simply recognize when energy doesn't align. You no longer chase clarity from others because you've found it within yourself. That's the quiet confidence that radiates from someone who has been broken open and rebuilt stronger. You've stopped explaining your worth because now you embody it. And while you're living in that newfound strength, he'll begin to understand what he truly lost. Not just a person, but a presence. The kind of presence that doesn't compete, doesn't control, doesn't demand, but inspires. You became the reminder of what he could have been if he had chosen growth over ego, connection over comfort, truth over convenience. He'll realize that you didn't leave to prove a point. You left because you finally saw the truth, that your love was a gift, and gifts shouldn't be begged to be valued. And he'll remember the way you looked at him the last time you saw each other. That look that said everything without saying a word. The calm acceptance in your eyes that told him it was over, not in anger but in peace. That's the kind of moment that replays endlessly in someone's mind. Because when you've been loved by someone who walks away gracefully, the memory doesn't sting, it echoes. It's an ache that sits quietly under the surface, reminding him of everything he wasn't ready for, and he might try to recreate what you had. He'll chase new connections, convincing himself he's moved on. But no matter how many faces he sees, he'll always feel something missing. Because what you gave wasn't attention, it was energy, and energy can't be imitated. He'll start to realize that attraction fades, chemistry fades, but energy, real, grounded, soul-level energy stays. That's why he'll think about you at random moments, even years later, because you didn't just touch his heart, you touched his growth. And the beautiful part, you won't need to know any of this. You won't need to hear his apologies, his explanations, his realizations. Because by the time he finally understands, you'll have already made peace with the story. You'll have rewritten it in your own way, not as a tale of heartbreak, but as a story of transformation. You'll understand that sometimes love enters your life not to last forever, but to awaken you, to remind you of your power, your softness, your resilience. And once you've been awakened like that, you never go back to who you were before, and you'll notice how your energy changes rooms before you even speak. How people are drawn to your calm, how your silence commands respect without effort. That's the kind of woman you become when you've learned to let go without bitterness. Because peace is magnetic. The same energy that once made him fall for you now draws better things toward you, opportunities, friendships, connections that feel effortless. And he'll see that, maybe not up close, but he'll feel it. He'll feel it when he hears your name, when he sees your face, when he realizes you're still kind, still radiant, still strong, but untouchable. Because once you've healed, you become a different kind of powerful. The kind that doesn't need to prove, doesn't need to chase, doesn't need to explain. The kind that simply is, and he'll finally understand that what broke him wasn't your absence. It was the realization that you were real, and he treated you like an option. That the love you gave wasn't ordinary, it was rare, and rare things don't come back once they're lost. That truth will live inside him long after you've forgotten the sound of his voice, and it will change him, not in the way you once hoped, but in the way life intended. Because some people are meant to love us into lessons, not lifetimes, and you, standing on the other side of all of it, will finally understand what real strength looks like. It's not in holding on, it's in letting go with grace. It's not in being chosen, it's in choosing yourself. It's not in making someone miss you, it's in becoming someone unforgettable because of how you carried yourself through the pain. That's the difference between those who break and those who rise. You didn't let heartbreak define you. You let it refine you, and though he'll never say it out loud, he'll carry that awareness with him forever. Every time he meets someone new, every time he tries to love again, every time he feels that quiet ache of longing that never truly goes away. Because deep down he'll know that once, just once, he was loved by someone who didn't need him to complete her, but inspired him to be better. And that kind of love, no matter how long it lasts, never leaves you the same.